Hi, I'm Andrea, and I know from personal experience when you are wading through the fog and darkness of feeling lost, it can be really, really hard to show up for yourself. I also know how very important it is to do that. Learning to recognize your smallest wins, things you probably don't even think of as a win. Learning to recognize your smallest wins as your greatest victories can be a really valuable tool in helping to shed light on that darkness, in leading you to a path to finding your own kind of BeYOUtiful. If you find those thoughts inspiring, let's explore that secret in today's Think About It Thursday. Welcome to Think About It Thursday. Pull up a nice refreshing drink. Mine is coffee. And join me for the sharing of some hopefully inspirational thoughts, things that I find inspirational in my own journey to becoming, and that helped me find my way off a dark path of feeling lost. Hope you find inspiration as well. Today's first quote is, "She didn't know the path. She didn't see the way. It didn't matter. She kept going. She kept putting one foot in front of the other. She kept showing up. She kept giving. She kept trying. And eventually the path became clear, and she found that she was indeed brave." So feeling lost isn't something I always had lots of fulfilling avenues and definite passion, definite purpose, drive to achieve those things, and the path to feeling lost was a process. It happened over time. I left the career that I'd spent 11 years in school learning how to do. When I got into the real world, I was slapped in the face with the reality that the work and the job are not always necessarily the same thing. And while I loved the work and I was passionate about the work, and I remain passionate about all of the things around that work, the job was not something that made me happy. It was something that made me pretty miserable. And after a couple of years of being miserable, I decided I didn't want to be miserable anymore just for a paycheck. I had lived and grown up in an environment where I saw the devastating effects of not finding things that make you happy can have. And I rose from the ashes of bearing witness to that. And I didn't want that in my own life, just because I'd invested 11 years of my life and more in school, in something I loved. It was still something I loved, but doing it was not. And there wasn't enough money in the world to make me want to stay in something that made me miserable. Didn't want to do that. Didn't want to repeat the history of what I witnessed in my childhood, in my own life. So I walked away from that career. And long journey of exploring, looking for the next thing to fulfill me and bring me happiness, and also pay the bills. And I had some successes and failures and stumbles, and then had my son. And that became an all-encompassing, beyond the normal ways that motherhood, especially single motherhood, becomes all-encompassing. My son was a preemie, and he had health challenges. And then the first time his health issues started to level out, I realized I didn't know who I was anymore, beyond his mom. I have a social life outside of my son. For the first couple of years, I didn't trust anyone or anything well enough to leave him with a sitter and go discover. mommy and me classes were not possible because of his health status. So I had nothing I was developing outside of him, outside of my world with him. So when his health status started to level out, I had nothing anymore that I found that defined me, and started to feel that lost feeling. And the more I felt lost, the worse I felt about the worse I felt about myself, and the worse I felt about myself, the more lost I got, and the harder it was to see any light or a light off that path. I explored many things, but I couldn't find anything. No passion, no purpose, no anything. Just Zachary's mom and health advocate, and later education advocate. But who was I? Who was I? What I hated, if you're an Oprah fan, she used to do this on her show, but I subscribed to her magazine, and she had this part. But even like if you just take surveys and they ask you like, what's your interests? I never had anything to put. And when I didn't have anything to put, it made me feel really horrible about it. It's like, how do you not know what interests you? What's wrong with you? So anyway, those feelings continued to manifest themselves, and the more I felt that way, the farther into that black hole of feeling lost that I fell, and the farther into the black hole I fell, the worse I felt about myself, and it just turned into a vicious circle. In 2014, I found something that started to shine a light on that darkness, and I followed it. I started on a self-development journey that was proving helpful, but still felt very lost. Just became more cognizant of the things that I couldn't earlier define. Where this quote says it didn't matter, for me it very much did matter that I didn't know my path, because I didn't have any sense that it didn't matter until I learned that it didn't. And I learned that it didn't. I learned slowly that the showing up, when you keep going, in order to keep going, you have to show up for yourself in some way. And I stumbled on a video, which I will link in my comments, that talked about recognizing your little wins and giving yourself credit for them. Again, there was something in that touched a chord and made sense for me, and it's something I started doing in my daily life, something that helped me turn a corner to move a little bit further from the darkness and closer to the light. Still far, far journey ahead to the light at that point, but it gave me a light to follow. And the secret for me was to pay attention to that typical things that you would not think of as labeling a win or a victory. Normally we think of those things as big things in our lives. But for me, when I'm in that dark place, and I don't want to get out of bed, choosing, and it's a choice, choosing to recognize that getting out of bed amounts to a win. Choosing to get dressed when I never even wanted to get out of bed amounts to a win. It's a victory over staying in bed and letting all the negativity win. Everything to get ready for your day becomes a win if you choose to recognize it as that. And in my darkest hours, I would pick those little things apart that were just part of a normal day of existing and a routine of a day for a typical person. I would make the conscious choice to recognize it as a win. I would congratulate myself sometimes in the mirror, sometimes just talking to myself, sometimes in my head, but I would consciously give myself credit for that little win. And each time I did that, it became fuel for momentum towards bigger wins. So, on some days, the getting out of bed was the win, and it didn't go beyond that. And on other days, I made it all the way to leaving the house when I didn't want to, or going to a function I didn't want to, so those were bigger wins. But typically, those are just routines of our day, and we don't stop to consciously give them credit for the significance they might have in that moment. And finding a way to do that for me was extremely helpful in keeping light on the path and giving me a road to follow towards becoming. So, where the quote says, she kept trying, and eventually the path became clear, and she found that she was indeed brave. And that can be a he also, or they, or anybody. So I discovered I was indeed brave. And that was momentum to move forward into the light as well. So choosing to embrace that different mindset of defining what a win was. And it only had to be my definition. I didn't subject it to anybody else's judgment, tried to not compare, but embracing that a win is relative to where you are in your journey, shined light for me to follow and taking me further out of the darkness. I was still a long way from this place of feeling like I'm blooming in my becoming, but I was on my way. And it gave me a tool, and it provided me a tool in my tool belt to grasp onto. And I truly believe that if you find yourself in a dark place for any reason, whether it's feeling lost or something else, that choosing to give yourself credit for those small things that nobody else would even give a second thought to is imperative to helping you find and embrace the positive. Give myself a pat on the back, or I would tell myself in the mirror, that was a win, what's your next one? What are you going to do next? And maybe it was just brushing my teeth. Maybe it was getting out of the house when I didn't want to. But all of those things, becoming conscious and intentional of recognizing where my limit was in that moment in time, meeting myself where I was, and recognizing what was an obstacle or a wall for me. And anything I did that got me over that hurdle, got me to the other side of that hurdle, again, consciously and with effort and intention, gave myself credit for this theory of little wins. And it just really hit for me in a way that helped me turn a corner. I was still a long way from discovering this life that has made me happy, but it was a turning point. And it was a turning point that had a different direction for me to start to follow. And accepting and embracing that a win is relative to where you are, not to a social definition of what a win is. And embracing that helped me shine light on my path. And I believe if you are struggling, whether it's with a feeling of feeling lost or anything else, meeting yourself where you are, recognizing where your limit is, and giving yourself credit for anything beyond that limit can be very healing. So, with that said, I am going to ask you to define a win for yourself in this moment that 30 minutes ago you would not have ever thought of as something winning in a million years. But in this moment, after our little discussion and my revelation of this secret, what's something you would label as a win in your own life? If you're comfortable, drop it in the comments. If you're not, write it down for yourself, but write it down, because writing it down means you can claim it. And so if you return to a dark place, claim that win and give yourself credit for it in the moment that you need it. So as we bring the discussion around this quote to a close and get to the very best part of it, that as you realize and recognize the tiny ways to show up for yourself, that it will lead to a clearer path. It will lead to you recognizing your place on it and how to move forward, and that you will be able to find your brave. And for me, being able to see, accept, and most importantly, embrace my brave, identify it and embrace my brave in the moment or in a specific part of the journey, but embracing that brave, discovering, defining, embracing that brave is what shines a light on my path to keep me moving forward. It was a tool, it remains a tool, and it remains a guiding light for me. I hope something I've shared can provide you that same tool in your tool belt to move forward on your path of becoming. So I have one more claim it request, and that is in the comments. Again, it doesn't have to be if you're not comfortable sharing in the comments, but do it for yourself, write it down someplace. Claim your brave. Claim your brave. Through today's discussion, what would you have not recognized as a place in your own journey that you have been brave, that through this discussion maybe you see a little bit differently and you can claim your brave? Write it down for yourself, either in the comments or on a piece of paper in front of you, but do it. And use that brave. Use the brave that you claim in any given moment or day. The fact that you make yourself conscious enough of what is happening to claim that brave, use that as the fuel to the stepping stones to your next win, which will be bigger than your last win because you're making the effort for it to be. And when you claim that win, it will be the momentum for the next one. And the braves get bigger and bigger, and the wins get bigger and bigger. And when you invariably hit a stumbling block or stone and trip and fall and tumble back a little bit way, keep this in your tool belt as a way to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward. So I hope, as always, that our discussion around this quote provided some value to you on your own journey, and that a main takeaway is how, regardless of where you are or how you're feeling, that it is really, really important to always meet yourself where you are. Not a quote we're going to have a discussion around, and one that I think has become kind of cliche, I hope, actually, is that comparison is the thief of joy. So don't be comparing yourself to anybody's journey, including my own. Look to yourself, meet yourself where you are, and judge. If you're going to judge based on your place and pace and path, because that's the only thing that has value for your journey. Your journey is unique to you. My journey is unique to me, but hopefully through my unique journey, I can offer tools that are helpful to you on yours. And if you take nothing else away, please know the importance of meeting yourself where you are. I hope you found this helpful. The second quote I'm going to share on today's topic of showing up for yourself is: devote yourself to an idea. Go make it happen, struggle on it, overcome your fears, smile. Don't forget, this is your dream. Sorry, I am super sweaty. Subscribe to find out why I'm doing these videos from my car. I have decided, I've set a goal, a mini goal, that when I reach 250 subscribers, I will explain why I do the videos from my car. There is a reason, and it is part of the channel evolution, but I want to wait till I have a fair amount of subscribers. So I will explain, but I live in Las Vegas. I might have to rethink doing these in my car for the summer. Today is relatively cool at just under 100 degrees, but I've been in the car for a bit and I am starting to sweat. I'm sorry. Back to quote number 2, realizing that I have the ability in any idea that I have to nurture that into something more. And I can be the caterpillar, and in the caterpillar stage, I'm finding that I'm inching along and I'm finding the idea, and while I'm in the cocoon, I'm discovering ways to nurture it. And when it's nurtured, it's time for me to break from that chrysalis and bloom into the beautiful butterfly. I am so thankful that I have found my bloom on my path. I hope I have the ability to offer perspective shifts that give you that same ability, or at the very, very least, shine a little bit of light on whatever you're going through. If you found today's quotes inspiring or something I shared, please do me a favor and drop the word inspired in the comments to let me know. And if you have a topic or a situation or a need for inspiration on something that you are currently going through or struggling through or emerging from, and you would like me to find quotes relative to your topic. Currently, I just pick random quotes that I have found meaningful for me, and I'm talking about those. But as I've said in other videos, my goal is to build a community here, and I want these videos to be about you, not necessarily about me. So if you could help me out by providing topics you would like me to talk on, please feel free to share them either in the comments, or if you're not comfortable sharing in the comments, go ahead and drop me a private message. To recap, in the description will be the link to that video about little wins. Lastly, if today's conversation or quotes or all of the above provided fuel for you to find light for your journey, please hit the subscribe button. Like, if you know somebody that this might prove helpful to, share. I look forward to you becoming a part of the community. I look forward to seeing you on Monday for Motivational Monday, and hope to welcome you back for a future Think About It Thursday. Have a fabulous weekend. Go out and find your beauty and be your own kind of beautiful. Have a great day.